Comic Book Savant, episode 472. Welcome back to another episode of the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This episode, we're going to be doing, a retro episode of Movie Talk. You know, normally in my Movie Talk episodes, I do reviews of current movies, but it was suggested. I made a post on the Facebook group a little while ago about episodes or new types of episodes you guys would like to see me do in the new year. And I think I posted it on Instagram and other places as well. And this was one of the suggested episodes of, it was recommended that you guys wanted to hear me do reviews on like more classic movies, ones that I never really touched on, and like their own singular review on the podcast previously. So I thought it was a really dope idea. So I'm starting with the original Superman movies, starting with Superman the movie and going through the original Christopher Reeves quadrilogy of movies, since it was 4 of them, and I've been picking them up one by one, and this is the first review of that series that I'll be doing. I'll be starting off doing these reviews, going through those 4 movies, and then I'll jump around to other things that you guys either suggest to me or that I choose or that I already have in my collection that I have readily available. Before I get into the meat of this episode, I want to let you guys know this episode is sponsored by Savant Society member Brittany Blockton. She has been a huge contributor via Patreon, as well as a very active member on like Twitter, and the Facebook group as well. Well, not Twitter, but Instagram. She's just one of you listeners and that I consider like family members that I've met and had a chance to interact with via online. She really came into the fold about a little bit over a year ago now. She's been super active, super supportive, just like so many of you guys. But this episode is sponsored by her through the Patreon campaign. So I appreciate her continued support, and she's the one bringing you this episode. So now getting back to the meat of the episode, this is Superman the movie. It is directed by Richard Donner. The movie was written by Mario Puzo, David Newman, Leslie Newman, Robert Benton, and Thomas Mankiewicz. And the breakdown is as follows. An alien orphan is sent from his dying planet to Earth, where he grows up to become his adopted home first and greatest superhero. And if you're not familiar, if you've never seen Superman the movie, this is a classic. This is one of really the original, I can't say modern day, but relatively modern day superhero movie. Let me look up. I forgot to look this up. I'm trying to remember. I grew up with this. I can't remember if I saw this as a really young kid in the theater. I know I'm dating myself so bad right now. Let me see when this originally came out. This came out in 1978. I was born in 75. So I don't think I ever saw it in theaters. I know by the time I was like of age to really remember anything, it was pretty much prominent on like TV. And I mean, gosh, I really feel old when I'm having this conversation. Like HBO was first really starting up and being a thing. This was like always on rotation. Like on the holidays, you could always watch Superman on, TV. It was always, played on TV as well. So, I saw this movie quite a bit as a child. It was interesting when this whole thing was suggested to me in the Facebook group. I was like, when was the last time I actually watched Superman the movie? And I had to think about it, and it had been a long time since I had even watched this movie. So that's why it's really great when you guys interact with me and suggest things that it lets me revisit these old movies. And at the time it was recommended, I think it was on sale, and I've been on this feverish foolhardy journey, I guess, of like getting buying as many of comic book movies. Like I've been on this personal crusade of picking up good, bad, and different. I've just been picking up, like if I see them on sale and I have some extra money, I've been picking up these. So it's kind of like I've been prepping for these retro movie talk episodes before they came up and it was suggested to me, and it just like the light bulb came off once the suggestion was made, because I had literally just bought Superman the movie. It was on sale. I think I got it for $4.99 on iTunes. Then I was having this conversation, and then it came up, and I'm like, wow. So it's prompted me to do. It gives me an excuse to keep buying old comic book movies, or just comic book movies in general, to have a whole collection. And I've literally been buying a ton. As more and more things have been popping up on sale, I've been able to grab like this whole backlog of superhero movies. But I digress. So this came out in '78. Um, so I saw it a lot during my childhood, but hadn't seen it in a long time. Let me just go over some of this epic casting. We have Marlon Brando as Jor-El, Superman's father. We have Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. Christopher Reeve as Superman Clark Kent. Ned Beatty as Otis. Jackie Cooper as Perry White. Margaret Kidder as Lois Lane. Jack O'Halloran as Anon. We have Valerie Perrine as Eve Tessmacher, Terrence Stamp as General Zod, Mark McClure as Jimmy Olsen, Sarah Douglas as Ursa, Diane Sherry Chase as Lana Lang, Phyllis Thaxter or Thayer, I don't know how that's pronounced, as Ma Kent, Glenn Ford as Pa Kent, and Jeff East as a young Clark Kent. So this is like a really star-studded cast. If you it's different cuts of the Superman the movie. Some people have seen it like at the very, very beginning of the film. You see the trial of Zod, Ursa, and Nan, which are the main villains in Superman 2. So they actually make an appearance. That's why I included them here, even though they starred. They just really just a scene. I guess it's like maybe 5 to 7 minute scene at the very beginning of the movie that sets up what we'll see in the second film, as far as them being the main bads and why they're the main bads. So they are listed in there. It was certain things that I did not remember about this movie, and rewatching it that really brought some things to light for me. I didn't know that I did have a reverence for this movie. I always appreciated Christopher Reeves as Superman and Clark Kent, but I really appreciate it more now than I did as a kid. I guess because it was always in my face, especially in my early childhood. And I've never been a huge Superman fan, and I just thought I really thought they were corny movies. But now, like as an adult, going back and watching them, it's really interesting to see how much more in my 40s that I appreciated when I was like 5, 8, 10. Because I hadn't really seen this movie in like decades, which was like crazy when I thought about it, because I love movies so much. But this was just a movie I did not revisit a lot since my childhood. But it was a darker tone to this movie. As a kid, I thought it was corny and it was like cartoony and goofy even. I was like, it was some really dark stuff, especially with Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor, where like it's one early scene where like he kills a police officer by using a platform to protrude him out and catapult him out in front of an ongoing train, and he's killed. It happens off screen, of course, but just the tone of it, I was like, I didn't remember it as a kid, it being this dark, but it could have been a lot too, based on, if it was on TV, they edit things for television cuts. And, I don't know like how many times I saw it on TV compared to seeing it on, like if I saw it like on HBO or something like that back when I was a kid. And like I said, I haven't revisited this film. This was a movie, like with certain older movies, I had like on VHS, then had on DVD, then had like on Blu-ray. I never remember really owning this movie ever. I remember I would rent the Superman movies and watch them, but I never remembered owning them. So this could be like the first time that I can remember actually even owning this film. So that was interesting to pick that up, watching it the way it was intended, non-television edits. That this definitely had a more adult, slightly darker tone than what than I remember. I also thought that Phyllis Thaxter, I guess, and Glenn Ford as Ma and Pa Kent weren't on screen for a long time, but their performances were very impactful to the film, I felt, though it was a very short segment. In this film, clocks in at like 2 hours and 23 minutes. This is a pretty long film. It doesn't seem like it, even going back watching it. It didn't seem long because they covered so much ground. They covered the destruction of Krypton. Then they covered him as the flashbacks of him as a baby and him being discovered. Then him in high school and seeing that. Then him going into Metropolis. They covered a lot of ground in this movie. So I guess as a kid, I thought they were in the film for a larger amount of time. They really weren't at all. But it does stand out, and it was like very impactful to the character of Superman, and had a bigger effect in the film than I remembered it from my childhood, which I could really appreciate. That they got a lot out of those actors in a short amount of time and a short amount of screen time, which I really appreciate. Um, Jeffrey Onsworth's cinematography was really ahead of his time and still stands up in watching this movie, especially in the earlier scenes in the film when he's in Kansas on the farm and like the high school scenes, the big, wide, cinematic, beautiful shots of like the wheat fields and all that kind of. They looked so stunning, and even like in the middle of the movie where he journeys to like up in Alaska and everything when he's the crystals leading him, like those wide shots are just so very stunning to look at. And I was just like, that was great cinematography. So it made me look up. So I wanted to give the cinematographer a shout out because it was really like those scenes still hold up to this day. And I have to go back now and rewatch them because since I've watched them, I finally upgraded in the office here. And in my bedroom, we had a 4K TV in the living room, but it was crazy. We had a 4K TV, 4K Apple TV, but I hated being in the living room for whatever reason. I just did not sit in the living room. I watched a couple of movies, but this movie's in 4K, and I want to go back and watch it probably again to see those shots because they looked good. And HD. I would love to see them now. I was going through my movie collection to see. Because I just got everything upgraded and installed in the office. So I was just playing around to see what movies in my iTunes collections are updated to 4K, and that's one of them. So I like just for those shots, I want to see because they were just so beautiful. Like I said, in just regular HD, I can imagine in 4K because the few movies I've watched in 4K, the visuals have just been outstanding. So I can't wait to see the updated visuals, and I'll comment somewhere and let you guys know if they how good this movie looks with that updated visuals in 4K later. I thought especially the Smallville shots in the early portion of the movie, like I said, were absolutely stunning. Oh man, they were just so beautiful. Like again, it's weird, and it's good to do things like this. And I remember early, especially when I was starting the podcast early on, I didn't go back and reread and revisit or rewatch stuff much. It was like if I read it once, I talked about it, I moved on to the next thing. It's very interesting, and maybe just because I'm 44 now, that I've become very retrospective. So things like this really helps me, and certain things I might have not liked that I've read or I've watched, going back later now with a more mature eye, the level of appreciation I can have for things now than I did that I might have took for granted or just didn't look at it on a deeper level. I do so much more now, and it changes my perspective on so many things, maybe for the good, maybe for the bad. For this, I feel like it's more for the good because I have a more appreciation for this film than I ever had in my youth. So that's really cool, I think. Also, one point I wanted to bring up about a performance. I was never, as a kid, a fan of Margaret Kidder's Lois Lane when I was younger. I always thought it was funny, especially the bit they used throughout the movie that she was this like top ace reporter, but she couldn't spell to save her life, which I relate to because I suffer from dyslexia. So I have problems with writing and reading and getting my words and numbers crossed up, and I can't spell for anything. Like I love spell check. I'm more technical than a writer when it comes to stuff. So I thought that was so funny because it's an aspect that's never been played up in her character that I can remember in the comics at all. She was always on point with that, but it was like she was the bumbling star reporter type thing. It was always funny, and everybody was always correcting her on, you misspelled that or you used the wrong punctuation. It was like, but she's a reporter. But it was such a different world, then to now. And when it comes to those kind of things and how the character has been portrayed over the years. Um, so it was interesting in that way that I thought the character lacked in the um, authenticity of her being an actual reporter. But one thing I cannot deny that I didn't notice as a kid, but I do notice now, that Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve had tremendous chemistry on screen with one another, which made the Lois and Clark relationship work so well in these movies that I appreciate more now, because I really dislike this smoking. I didn't think Margot Kidder was, really pretty, as far as the standard of, I thought that was pretty, because I think my standard for pretty when I was a kid at that age was Linda Carter and her Wonder Woman. And I was like, she's not like Wonder Woman pretty, but their chemistry though, that's that to sell that Lois and Clark relationship, I see it now and it works so well. So I don't think, like, they probably could have casted someone else, but she was the right casting because their chemistry was so on point. And like at the end part when she dies and he goes back and turns back time to save her, and like when he originally finds her and she's dead in the car and he pulls her out, and like his rage when he screams and he flies up in the air, like I felt that. Like I felt that love that he had for her. They sold that extremely well. Um, wow, it's powerful. Like this movie was like definitely like if I was ever to do, I did like my top 100 movies a couple of years ago, and I broke it up into like I can't remember how many episodes. Like this movie would rank a little bit higher now, going back revisiting this movie and appreciating it so much more. This movie works on so many different levels. Um, Last but not least, I think the one thing that stands out to me more as well is just like Gene Hackman's portrayal of Lex Luthor was so much darker than I remembered from my childhood, and it was quite chilling. And then it made me think about Superman Returns, where it's really the if you've seen the whole Donner cut of Superman 2, and then you watch Superman Returns, the Bryan Singer Superman movie with Brandon Routh, uh, Kevin Spacey's portrayal as Gene Hackman's, because it's continuing in that world just way later with different actors, that it reinforces how closely tied it is to Gene Hackman's portrayal. And I remember, like, when I reviewed Superman Returns when that came out, I spoke on he was trying to he took Gene Hackman's portrayal and like upped it, but he really didn't. He just took it and continued it a lot. Because what I noticed in Kevin Spacey's portrayal is mimicked here. It was started here, so he just really continued the work that was already done, because it was supposed to be that same character, because it's in that same time frame. Because Superman Returns essentially is like picks up after the Donner cut of Superman 2, and it's a spiritual successor to that movie, taking out what happened in Superman 3 and for the Quest for Peace. And it's kind of supposed to slot in kind of in that space. And I was like, wow, it was so, like, again, amazing, and it shed a light on so much that like I missed. So and I'll be doing a retro review on Superman Returns as well. After I do these first four movies, I'll do that as a fifth, because it is spiritually tied into these films. Or I'll do it after I do Superman 2, since that's kind of where in the timeline it kind of fits or slots in. I don't know if I picked up the Donner cut of Superman 2, but I don't know in that cut if it has the original cut, because I probably need to watch both. The last time I watched Superman 2 is, I think, when the Donner cut was made available, like on Netflix years ago. I think it was on Netflix, and I like watched it. So I haven't watched the original. The last time I watched Superman 2 was the Donner cut, and that's the one I bought. So that review, I'll still have to figure that out. I got it on tap to do. That'll be the next retro review I'll do. I have to figure that part out. Like, I didn't know till I watched this film, until like afterwards, because I wasn't paying attention, that it is an extended cut or director's kind of cut of Superman the movie that I didn't watch. I didn't realize it till afterwards. It's a little bit longer. I can't remember how many minutes longer it is. I think it's like 20 minutes, so it pushes it more closer towards like a 3-hour movie. Um, at some point I would watch it, but at the time I was watching that and I didn't want to turn around and watch it back to back, and I didn't get back. I just forgot to go back and watch it later. So I'll do that at some point, and maybe I'll come back and do it like a short amendment kind of episode to amend like any differences that I noticed between the Superman the movie and the director's or longer cut, extended cut of the film. I'll do an update, or if you guys want me to do an update once I watch that, let me know, and I'll circle back around to it once I work through some more of these reviews for you guys and see how you respond to them. Again, though this was suggested, you might not like me doing these retro reviews. So if you like them or you don't like them, let me know in the comment section, or if you're in the Facebook group, it's facebook.com/groups/the Savant Society. You can go there. You can request to join the group. So as soon as I see your request, I'll approve you. You can come in and you can comment, or you can always email me directly. You can go to comicbooksavant.com, and I have a contact page link. You click that. It's a contact form. You can email me directly from the site, or you can always email me directly. It's comicbooksavant@gmail.com. You can always just email me directly, and with the subject line of the episode, and and say episode Comic Book Savant episode 472 feedback, and tell me, what you think. Hey, I like these retro movie reviews. I'd like to see more, or suggest a movie you would like to see me review. Because like I said, I'm going to knock this series out, and then I don't know what the next film or films or group of films I'll do. But I'll kind of wait to kind of hear some feedback from you guys one way or another. Like after you finish with the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, I'd like to see like Batman or whatever it is. Like I said, as long as I own it or I can pick it up, I will take those recommendations, and that will be what I'll come to figure out what the order of the next kind of retro reviews I will do. Now, overall, looking at my score of this movie as of the here and now, revisiting the film, I have a 5-area scale that I look at, and then I average everything together to come up with my overall score. The acting, I gave a 7 out of 10. I felt like the casting was an 8.5 out of 10. I feel like the direction was a 9 out of 10. The special effects was a 6.5 out of 10. And the overall story was a 7 out of 10, giving it an average overall score for me is a 7.75 out of 10, which is a fairly strong movie in my estimation and my thought. Again, it ranks a little bit higher for me now, going back revisiting the movie. And comparing it, especially to later, like the Man of Steel, where they did, they mimicked kind of the structure in a way of Superman the movie. Far as you saw the Krypton scenes, you saw different spots of him growing up before he went to Metropolis. So it did kind of mimic as an homage, kind of, but they hit certain similar beats. And I love the Man of Steel. So seeing those kind of things and seeing the influence that this really kicked off the major motion picture superhero blockbuster film that we know today. This was like the template, the original template. They weren't done this large before this point. They were superhero movies done, before, but you go back, this is like the real first superhero blockbuster film. So we owe a lot to what we have now to this film, and Christopher Reeves as making us believe a man could fly. And rest in peace to Christopher Reeve. He was always just a phenomenal actor and just a really good humanitarian with all the different things that happened to him, with him being paralyzed later in life and all those things. He just was a brilliant guy, and it makes me appreciate him even more, because I think as a kid I took him for granted as being Superman and Clark Kent. But seeing it now, it just gives me so much, like, he was just so perfectly cast in that role. And no one, I really like what's his name that plays him now? I'm gonna say Brandon Routh, but not Brandon Routh. You know what I'm talking about. I'm totally blanking. I'm seeing his name, Henry Cavill. I love Henry Cavill as Superman and Clark Kent on this newer version, but no one ever, like, he will forever be Clark Kent Superman to me is Christopher Reeve, with I would say Henry Cavill probably in second place for me as far as playing that. Um, I don't know what else to really say about this movie that I haven't said. I want to know what you guys think, so definitely comment, email me, let me know what your thoughts are on this film. Have you ever seen this film? If you haven't, have I hopefully enticed you to want to check this film out? It's definitely a movie of its time, being a movie of the late 70s, early 80s. Certain things, from my childhood, seeing them again, it's like, wow, like telephone booths, those don't exist anymore. They haven't for a while. So it was crazy seeing like little tidbits and of stuff like that, just what the world was when I was a kid, that is so drastically have changed since then. But that's all I really have for you guys for this episode. As always, you can find me on social media at Comic Book Savant on Twitter and Instagram. You can also find my page at Facebook, facebook.com/Comic Book Savant. Also, I've already told you guys about the Facebook group. If you like the work that I'm doing here, you want to support the content that I create, you can go to patreon.com/Comic Book Savant. I have a Patreon campaign. It's multiple tiers for as little as $1 a month. You can get access to another additional podcast feed. I do a Patreon supported podcast feed. So if you like what I do here and you want more of it, and it's other bonuses and things that you get on the Patreon campaign. Like you said, you can go to patreon.com/Comic Book Savant. You can see the tiers and see the different things that are available. Again, one of those things that the particular tier that Brittany was at, she gets sponsorship credit for supporting this episode, which again I appreciate so much. Help like that helps me do more dynamic things and do more of these cool episodes that you guys as listeners recommend to me to do. I always want this to be a collaborative process between us both, on me making fun content that I enjoy making, and as well that you guys enjoy listening to and consuming. So it's a partnership here. So you can find me there on social media and those different places. If you want to find any content surrounding Comic Book Savant, you can always go to comicbooksavant.com. The website is the central location for everything. I'm also on YouTube, youtube.com/Comic Book Savant. I haven't shot any new videos yet. It's been a while, but it is literally like 100 and some odd videos that I've done over the past few years. They're totally different, fresh content, all comic book related, and you get to see my ugly mug. So stop by there and check that out as well. Especially with the current times and people having a lot of free times on their hand. If you've never checked out the YouTube channel, check it out, because I have totally reviews of things I haven't covered here or on the Patreon. I try to separate it out and put content in many different places that you don't get redundant content for me, but you always will get comic book related content at any one of the places. So definitely check those out if you have a chance. That's all I have for you guys for this episode. As always, I'm your host, James Harris. This is the Comic Book Savant podcast. Until next time, you guys stay safe out there. Please stay safe. Keep washing your hands, keep social distancing, but don't become socially inactive. Keep interacting with people. Just do it safely. Until next time, again, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.